During graduate school, I sacrificed sleep at unreal levels. Like I would sleep 2 to 4 hours a night, go as long as I could off of that consistently until I just eventually fell over, slept for 10 or 12 hours and felt good enough to start that cycle again. Today I want to talk about sleep, some of the implications of it, how a behavioral account would maybe look at it, and then encourage you to go check out a long form podcast that we just completed that's out now on this, giving you a little sample. So welcome to the Daily BA. So the general recommendation from the CDC's website here is 7 hours for adults of minimum of sleep per day. Now, if we look at just this one map on the prevalence of short-term sleep duration, so less than 7 hours amongst adults aged at least 18 or higher, it is unbelievable that we're looking at anywhere from as low as 20%, but upwards of 60% of the American populace is not getting adequate sleep. I've been a part of this, I think, almost the last decade of my life. Now, the implications of something like this, we hear about this, but what are some of the things that it actually affects? So we check out down here, chronic conditions that are affected as a result of poor sleeping, hygiene and consistent amounts of the recommended amount include heart attack, coronary heart disease, stroke, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, cancer, arthritis, depression, chronic kidney disease, and diabetes. And if you want to go dig around at the prevalence rate of those, now all of a sudden, this is infecting a massive amount of the population. Quite frankly, scaring the hell out of me because of my poor sleep hygiene for 10 years and the implications it may have. We know humans are really bad at delayed consequences, the short-term reinforcers of perceiving that you get more done or handling your day-to-day like I was doing when I was sleeping inadequately, but still kind of getting stuck in that reinforcement loop is worth more in the moment than the delayed outcomes of a better lifestyle, a better body, not having to deal with the negative implications of these various chronic conditions that sound horribly scary and debilitating to various degrees, if not just straight up killing you. So this channel is about behavior analysis, which for us, anything that a human does is defined as behavior, which I've championed that a lot, but this one is super interesting. Sleep has direct evidence, I'm gonna quote here, that despite much investigation, however, neither general nor species-typical environmental unconditioned stimuli for eliciting sleep, nor reinforcers for maintaining and strengthening sleep have been discovered. To translate that a little bit, what this means is this does not fall under the two categories of behaviors we like to describe things in, either respondent behavior or operant behavior. That is, loosely speaking, reflexes and things that are controlled by rewards, punishments, things like that. There's always this underlying biological state that we allude to, but we don't know a lot about as behavior analysts. And this is the intersection, or an example of the intersection of biology and behavior. You see, sleeping is described as a biobehavioral state, aligned with other things like pregnancy or being alert. And while I, and largely part of the scientific community, still doesn't understand all the intricacies of why we need as much sleep as we do and what's going on there, we do understand why sleeping patterns start to get altered and sleeping disorders start to arise, why people have trouble sleeping at night. And this is simply due to a couple various factors. We go into depth with these on the podcast, but in short, it is different cues that may be signaling either staying awake behavior or going to sleep behavior, and then being in the wrong places or the right places to cue those things. So for example, phones typically are talked about, you're scrolling at night. What that's doing is there's biological effects of the light, depending on how bright it is, but it's also setting up signals that reinforcement for things that are not sleeping, such as accessing whatever it is on your phone, are available. And what that does is it impacts the stimuli associated with sleeping. So this is why one of the basic recommendations that people talk about is sleep happens in the bedroom and nothing else happens there. Well, I mean, other things happen there, but that aside, it's not things like watching TV, scrolling your phone, etc., right? So the proper cues for either signaling sleep time or not sleep time are extremely important. This is where someone like Kira, the sleep expert that we had on the podcast, talks about in more depth.
Put it away before I'm even in bed.
Yeah.
One, because of the blue light issue, but two, because why would you engage in behavior of laying still and going to sleep when you have the most powerful reinforcer in the whole world, like, in
Right?
your hand? Like, there's so much competing behavior with that where it's
Exactly,
Yep.
like,
though.
Yep. That's
yeah,
right.
it's
That's
like
Yeah.
a
why, though.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you do because
it's the
So
most
I mean, if you're an
reinforcing thing ever.
information junkie, like novel stimuli is my addiction. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. You're just like, I want to read, I want to learn, I want to like
a
consume something.
continuous, ongoing influx of novel stimuli, auditory or visual, or I mean, like it's compulsive is a weak word for the experience that
Now, it turns out there's really three categories in which different cues for sleeping behavior, or lack thereof, can sort of shape up or around. They are exteroceptive, interoceptive, and proprioceptive stimuli. That is, what triggers you to go to sleep, or lack thereof, can be a result of things that are going on that are signaled through these three different ways in which we interact with the world. Now, the other side of this is looking at motivation. Describe motivation up here in a different video. Motivation is still through stimulation. It just works a little bit different. It's things that have happened to alter the value in the moment and behavior of producing those sort of sleep behaviors. So for example, caffeine, consumption of caffeine. What that does is it, as a stimulus, affects your body, your behavioral state, making sleep less valuable in the moment and making you less likely to engage in behaviors such as going to your bedroom, putting on your phone, things like that, that would lead to sleep. So it kind of has that two-part definition there. It alters the value of something, and it also alters your behavior in the moment of producing things that will produce that sort of valuable thing, such as sleep in the moment. Teaching people to identify these different ways the interoceptive, exteroceptive, and proprioceptive stimulation may be affecting your sleep and communicating them to others. So if you enjoyed this, it's a fascinating discussion. It's about an hour and a half. We cover in depth a lot of different things, from personal scenarios, some of the science, going to that behavioral state a little bit more, and then some other fun topics in there as well.
But the important things are looking at what are your sleep dependencies. So that's kind of a fancy way of saying what are the SDs that occasion sleep.
Yeah.
And that's usually the biggest one. And then looking at the MOs for sleep. So how can we make sure that when you are getting into bed, sleep is going to be a powerful reinforcer, so you are motivated to fall asleep, so that when you get in your bed, you fall asleep quickly and you stay asleep. And the hands down biggest, most important, best thing that you can do is sleep on a consistent schedule. So go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every morning.
Please check it out if you have some time, if you're interested in sleep. This is an area that I think behavior analysis needs to know so much about. I was surprised at just how little I actually knew when it came to this. So glad. I'm gonna link a chapter down below that summarizes it very fantastically. That made me feel much more equipped to have a conversation with an expert like this. So check it out. And also Kira's website, and link it down below, doing some fantastic work, super cool. I'm gonna link a colleague up in Canada that I know that also does some of this sort of stuff as well. So check them out. Thanks so much. That's your Daily BA.
The cool thing with sleep is it's a really short process in most cases. Like, the assessment can be done in an hour. They